All right. Good afternoon and welcome back. This we have our first guest, so I'm probably gonna take me like 5-10 minutes to stop treating this like a CNN news desk interview and just settle into normal conversation. But we are back. This is our episode 14, my lucky number, but also technically episode 2 since our relaunch as Indie Forever. And we have our first guest conversation today with the lovely Malka Manuel. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Manuel. There we go. There we go. Welcome, Malka. Hi.
Hi,
Thank
how are
you.
you
I'm
doing?
so happy to be here. I'm doing well. I was out for a walk today and the sun's out and it's just put me in a great mood.
Malka, you have the disposition of a really lovely cup of tea. You always make me feel every time you talk, I'm like, wow, you seem so grounded in a way that feels I'm envious of.
That's so nice. Thank you. That's the best compliment.
Yes, it did. I definitely mean it complimentary. Well, thank you for joining us today. So, a bit of background on how we met Malka, and then I'll let her kind of say hello herself. So, Malka is the founder of Lunette Films, which is a distribution agency that kind of supports films, theatrical and streaming as well, but is kind of a conduit to different platforms and strategies on how to market and release your film and get it out there. So, she formerly worked at MUBI and also independently. And I think you also have a really cool, I'm going to call it a zine, but it's maybe technically a blog online with like share different film crit and things like that. That's really interesting. And had reached out to Tanya and I about dinner with friends after TIFF. And we ended up having a conversation and, kind of shared, found out we had a really similar ethos in how we were, trying to hold space for a particular kind of indie film. And, I think Dinner with Friends really feels like a if you get it kind of movie. And I think when we talked and you got it so like right on the money, I think we definitely felt like a kinship in kind of how we were approaching, the film industry and at least thinking about it kind of thing. And you were just gearing up to officially launch Lunette Films. And so we decided that we might work together with Dinner with Friends and do some interesting things in the States. But yeah, tell us a bit about Lunette Films and kind of a bit about your background. Yeah, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So I only launched Lunette a little bit over 2 months ago. It feels very fresh, but it's work that I've been doing for a while now. Lunette is a distribution agency focused on independent films by people of color. And what we're trying to do is create more tailored release strategies for the films that we work on. So we collaborate with the filmmakers in a sort of like one-to-one capacity. Everything is a conversation. We don't like decide how we're going to release the film on our own. Everything is according to the dreams or the desires of the filmmakers and what kind of vision they had for their film while making it. And that's something that is really important to me. I feel like
Yeah.
there's no point in distributing a film any other way. My initial concept for Lunette was to create a sort of distribution agency that operates like a creative agency. So the same way that a creative agency has all these kinds of people with different specializations, I was hoping to create a team of people where everyone has their own specialization, and we put together a team of like everything that one could need to distribute your film, whether that's a poster designer, a trailer editor, a marketing person, the booker, which is myself, or a publicist, or a sales agent who can sell your film to streaming platforms. Eventually, I'd like to grow the team to be able to handle that internally, but right now I'm acting as a sort of project manager. I'll put together a team of freelancers, essentially.
Mhm.
They're all people that I've worked with in the past and people who I feel can really best suit the film's needs and best understand the film's target audiences. So every team I work with is different according to the films. And yeah, so far we released one film called Next Life. It was at New Directors, New Films and will be in theaters this summer.
Amazing. Congrats, congrats. That's your first feature, right?
Thank you. Yes, it's our
Yeah.
first feature and also the director's first feature.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing. And a lovely write-up in the New Yorker. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so
Congratulations.
much. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, so more to come, but
More to
That's
come.
the
I
case.
really love that idea that, like, because what it sounds like you're saying is that it's not one size fits all, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's just,
Exactly.
you're not cookie cuttering these films and what the, rollout will look like. You're actually have the opportunity to choose a publicist or a designer or, an editor who's going to fit the project more accurately and just like more individually than just doing everything the same kind of like, it's not about the film sort of catering to you, it's you catering to the film, which I think is something that independent filmmakers really, they're sort of hungry for that, right? Like to not
Yeah.
be in a big machine where they have to release all of their ideas and control to this is sort of quote unquote larger power that gets to just be like, this is how it's done. So I feel
Yeah.
like that is just such a, as you were talking, I was like, oh, this is comforting.
Well, this is what I was just
Very,
gonna
very
say.
comforting.
It's also really comforting to hear you kind of, commit to the role of project manager a bit, right? As unsexy as that title may be compared to like creative director and founder and that kind of thing. But because I think the fears with attempts I've seen at a version like what you're describing before, that the person in your role serves solely as a connector kind of thing, right? And
Mhm.
then an independent team or a freelancer is left kind of having to relay the correspondence across multiple teams over and over again, or they have to work to help sync them up. We had the harrowing experience of serving as our own post supervisors on Dinner with
Oh my
Friends.
god.
And it would like, so the role that you occupy there in connecting those independent freelancers, I think is a really, really important hinge one, right? Because it's what makes a lot of working on the independent level and on micro scale sometimes, right? Really fatiguing, right? Is not being able to coalesce everything on both sides and have a clear through way to it. So I think it's really smart. Yeah, like as Tanya said, like I felt it feels super comforting to like, okay, well, I'm talking to one person, but we're going to try and find like the best fit across the board for whatever it is that we're trying to do. I'm curious.
Mhm.
I mean, you worked previously at MUBI, but I mean, it's not, the question isn't specific to MUBI per se, but it's no small thing to be working at what is arguably a successful distributor, right, in this day and age, and a very well-known one. Kind of curious, what made you want to make the pivot from kind of a more established, I guess, kind of entity to something on your own? And is there anything you miss from, the perks of a larger infrastructure, and what anything you don't miss?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm just trying to fill in some of the gaps that I felt while working at other larger companies. I think sometimes part of the problem is that the folks at those companies don't necessarily understand the films that they're working on, or they don't understand the target audience and don't really make an effort to try.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
sort of my frustration. And it is a capacity thing. It's like, yeah, everyone at these companies has a directive from an executive, and they might not necessarily have the time to dedicate to create a more tailored strategy for each film. It makes sense that they have a sort of cookie cutter approach because if you're releasing one film every single month, it just doesn't give you enough time, right?
yeah.
And so that's kind of the reason why I wanted to do things on my own. I'm trying to pace myself out. It's hard
Hmm.
because there's
Hmm.
so many great films that I want to work on, but I think it's important to space things out to allow both myself and the film enough time to really get it to be in the best position it can be.
Yeah,
I do really miss my colleagues. I think that that was the
yeah.
best part of working there. Everyone just really loved the work that we were doing, and, it was just exciting to go into an office and talk about the films that we had watched that week, and everyone just gets it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So that
That's
was
really
exciting.
interesting you talk because I'm curious how you found that since, right? That I mean, Tanya and I often talk about this, how much the largest case for going back to work or in offices is just socializing even, right? And
Yeah,
just like
100%.
that more than anything is what could get me just the kind of low stakes socializing with people that you shared some kind of like I find that there's film groups that are so dear to me or like I go to Kiwi Lynch, who's a great writer here in Canada, does like we'll do writers game nights. And I go to that just
Ooh.
because there's no one else in the world, nowhere else where I can get a cluster of Canadian writers to just sit around with that I won't have to explain the whole industry to, or like, we have, even if we don't like the same stuff, we have certain things in common that yeah, you just don't get to talk about or nerd out with in the same way elsewhere. How are you finding that?
No, it's really true. I think that that's something I'm always trying to supplement for myself. I think I forget how much I really need to socialize and like how much it actually
Yeah.
recharges me.
Totally, I
Um,
think we all do, yeah.
yeah, because I do tend to think of myself as an introvert, but after being inside for a few days, I'm like, what's going on?
I mean, then
Yeah.
same way, it's like, what did they say about introverts? It's like, it's not like you're shy, but you just need a lot of time to recharge. But,
Yeah.
like, how much time to recharge? Like, even once you're it might take you a while, but, like, eventually you're recharged. You, like, need to go outside, you need to
Yeah.
be around other people,
Or
and, yeah, totally feel the
I'm
same.
always reminded of it when I do. I feel like I'm more extroverted than introverted, but I do have my limit. But I'm always reminded of it when I've been like, especially in the winter, you're in New York, it's winters are brutal, you're inside. And then like I'll go out for like some network mixer thing and they'll have the right amount of shrimp and I've had the right, amount of cocktails. And I'm like, you know what, that was great. You know what, guys, the industry's gonna be fine. I think we're all gonna make it. I see that all of our features being funded really soon. And then I realize like, oh, you just needed to like talk with other people and get outside for
Yeah.
2 seconds, and now life is worth living again.
Yeah.
Um, so you miss your colleagues. Is there anything? What don't you miss? Is there anything very specific that you don't miss,
I
even
don't
if it is workplace drama?
I don't miss working in a very white, team. I
Real.
think it was really hard, actually. I just had a hard time having basic conversation with
Yeah.
them. I don't know why, but that was really difficult, and honestly, one of the nicest things about doing things on my own now is that I really don't interact with that many white folks as much. It's like it's very tiring having to constantly explain yourself.
Yes. The translation, the constant translation mode that you're in to kind
Yeah,
of be understood, but then also in environments like a distributor, like you need to be arguing for, you're actively arguing for or against something or a way of doing
always.
something or what have you. So it's not just do you understand me, but I need to actually get you on board to my thinking as to why I'm seeing this way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard enough, right? Like, what we're trying to do is hard enough, and, like, I mean, I'm white, but, like, I definitely relate to being in rooms where you have that moment and you're like, "Why am I here?" I mean, you're kind of exhausted already because you catch yourself halfway into trying to explain something or trying to get people to come around, and then you're like, as the fatigue sets in, you're like, "I don't yeah, maybe I just need to go somewhere else or not be here."
I just feel like it's a respect thing. I think that I
Mm-hmm.
was constantly fighting to have myself considered as, like, an equal participant
Yeah.
and for people to take my ideas seriously. I don't know if that was because I'm not white or I'm not a man, but
It was both.
it was both.
Uh-huh.
Definitively, it was
Yeah.
definitely both.
No,
Yeah.
100%, and it was just really exhausting. And there were lovely friends that I had on the team,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone above me was a white man, and
Mm-hmm.
I could just, feel myself shrinking. I think that's one thing I really don't miss.
That's so
Makes sense.
important. I think you name something that maybe we don't all, but when you start to feel yourself shrink is when like the kind of hard challenge of doing something on your own or without having the safety net feels more worthwhile, right? Or feels like you're more up for that challenge than ever before. Because I think it's the society we're all raised into, right? You're going to get work somewhere and you're trying to, and in our minds, I think I did this for a while, even when I was volunteering at festivals, that it was like, oh, I want to make films, but if it's close enough kind of thing, right? And I'm in this cultural institution, and so it shouldn't be as bad, and then you do feel yourself start to get smaller and smaller, and it feels less worthwhile to kind of bring up that idea or what have you. And I think there's some people that are really suited to the corporate, very industrial industry side of what we do. But I think if you're a truly creative person, that can be very, very tough, right? If you're in a position within that side of our world where you don't get the most power at the table, but you do have creative ideas to offer, right? I think it's a question of how much time do I spend exhausting my energy trying to get you to hear the idea, let alone approve it, before I just go and try this myself, kind of thing.
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I think that's exactly the
Yeah.
experience that I had. I did try, at the very end. I was like, let me at least try and see if this will work. Like, let me see if they'll take me seriously. But ultimately, I do think that having the flexibility to just do things on your own and not having to just like convince everyone that
Yeah.
what you're doing is worthwhile, is so worth it.
And that's partially why we wanted to make the podcast, because I think what you're describing too, Tanya and I sometimes call creative contagion, right? Because by virtue of you deciding, like, okay, I think I'm gonna go for it, and we were deciding at the same time, and now we've met each other, and it's like we underestimate how much more gas that puts in the tank for each one of us, right? To be like, well, I'm not, like, we're not nuts. Malka's doing her thing too. We're trying to do our thing. It's
Yeah.
not just that. So what are you excited about with Lunette Films now that you've, like, in these first 2 months? What's the thing you're most excited to do, or do you have a big goal that you want to hit, something that you don't think you could have ever done, you know, in an organization or a larger company?
I can't say what the film is yet, but I am
Yes,
very
yes, yes.
excited for our release coming out in August. It's a film that I feel is very dear to my heart. I think we're gonna try to go really big with this. And
Okay.
that is something that I feel we couldn't do at another organization or a larger institution. With this film in particular, they took it to so many distributors and they were like, we want to go to AMC. We want to go really big. We feel that there is a humongous audience for a film like this. And every single distributor was like, no, we don't really see that. I don't really think that that's possible. We're not even going to try for the AMCs because we don't see that happening.
Such a shame.
And it's such a shame. And so I feel really good about what we're able to do with the film. We're gonna go for AMCs.
Mm,
We're gonna hire a big marketing agency to do like fun activations and
mm.
I think just like do the film justice, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I'm very, very excited about that. And I think we have a few films coming out in autumn and our plans for those are in the works, but I think that they'll be really, really great too.
I mean, that's super exciting. And you've touched on something that I think a lot of people listening may not realize. I mean, it's the same that, when we talk about like casting, when it comes to representation or any kind of genuine diversity kind of thing in storytelling, it's like we often look at, well, who's the director picking? Who's writing the story? What kind of character did they write? Did we, da, 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 and we overlook the amount of casting agents that are intermediaries between that breakdown going out and interpreting it their way, and which clients they end up deciding who, like, that kind, and this kind of overlooked power, right, in this middle position, right, that has a lot of impact as to who gets put forward. And similarly with theatrical, right, there's sometimes it's not a matter of whether your film might have commercial appeal, it's do they see that it has commercial appeal or not, right?
Hmm.
And that's the difference between two theaters over a limited weekend and 20 or 200, right? Is just whether or not um someone sees that potential in it. And in the same way, I think the potential that you see in this film, however many hosts of other people did not. But getting wide release for an independent film or to be in a bigger theater like an AMC chain is no small feat at all.
Definitely.
I'm curious, now that you're responsible for the business side of Lunette Films, right? How has that shaped or informed, because before the bigger companies become the bigger companies, I think if I give Seth Rogen lots of credit for different things, but I do think he was really smart with this representation in the studio, right? Where it does feel like a lot of people work at bigger companies or in these exec positions do have this inner letterbox loving cinephile in them that just loves the films that they grew up on and wanted to make those. but the bigger the machine gets, right, the bigger it does thing. I mean, and of course, as we talk here at Indie Forever, we always love getting paid. It just depends on by who and what it's going to cost us. So, yeah, what are your thoughts now in terms of like how you're selecting films and kind of just for your own financial future? I mean, you don't have to tell us your business, but yeah, if you could.
All very good questions. I think that the business side is definitely something I am growing more accustomed to, and I'm trying to just teach myself as I go. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to make things more sustainable, both
Mm-hmm.
for myself and the filmmakers I work with. I think part of that is being able to take on really big films that I know I can make enough to sustain myself with
Mm-hmm.
and use whatever revenue I make from that release to support a smaller film that I still feel really passionate about, but
Yeah.
probably won't make much money.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's something I'm still trying to figure out. Initially, I was considering going the nonprofit route to see if I could get grants so that I could distribute a film at like no cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just felt like so much paperwork and it was a bit intimidating. So I'm trying to figure out other ways to do the same kind of thing. Yeah, but I don't know if I've 100% figured it out yet because things are still very new.
No, that's fair. I feel like that's part of the thing that it's like a choose your hard and you're choosing to fumble forward this other way and at least be pleasantly surprised by something new or worst case you fall, you can get back up as opposed to whatever the other route is, whatever medium you're working in, it at some point starts to feel like there's no way forward there kind of thing. So it's interesting because I mean we definitely can relate to that reality too. I'm curious in
Yeah.
terms of when you say a bigger budget film, what does that look like for you? Again, we won't hold you to the court of law on any of these answers. There's all kinds of variables and things will change. But is that like, is that a budget level? Is that a commerciality appeal? Or what are some of the markers?
I think both. I think commercial can mean different kinds of things, but I think it speaks to the kinds of audiences that you're able to reach. So whether that's super, super niche, which might not be commercial,
Mm-hmm.
um, or if you can hit broader audiences or at least a large group of people or various groups of people. So it can really just mean different kinds of things. Budgets as well. Yeah, so the filmmakers that I work with often come with their own budgets
Okay.
for how much they want to spend on distribution, and I just figure out the best way to allocate those funds.
Okay.
So if a filmmaker is like, I have $0, I'll say, okay, here's what we can do. We can not spend anything on marketing. We can try to do our own publicity. We can try to make our own social media assets with whatever kind of Photoshop skills we have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and bring people out with grassroots outreach, partnering with organizations to help us spread the word. And things like that don't cost anything. It's just a matter of building relationships and building community, relying on that community. On the other hand, if someone has like $1,000 budget for solely distribution, I'm like, okay, great. We can use that on a marketing agency. We can use that on a publicist. But you don't necessarily have to have that much money to make your film a success. It's just a matter of finding the best routes for each film.
Yeah, which is what's so great about what you're doing, right? Is because I think usually when you don't have money, you automatically feel like, well, I guess I'm just going to hope for something. But it's nice to feel the kind of intensive care of like, well, we're not going to treat this like nothing, right? Like what can we do for $0 still? Which I think, at the end of the day is what, if you have no money, is the most you could hope for, right? Is that there's someone else willing to kind of team up with you, right? And at least advise you along the way as to how you can give yourself a chance. Sorry, Tanya.
Yeah, like that's it, right? It's not like you have $0, so, because you have no money, you're not going to do anything, right? You're still going to do stuff, right? You're going to try and be thoughtful about it. Like you're saying, there's strategies, there's things that you can do. And so even though you might not have the biggest budget, it doesn't mean that you're not putting everything that you have into it, which I think is the most important part, right? Like that's the part that keeps you feeling optimistic and not like you do have to just sort of hope for the best or like nobody's going to see it or there's nothing you can do. There are things you can do, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah, there are things you can do. I always tell people to, even if they don't have distribution, to look up the website of a theater that they want to play at.
Mhm.
And more times than not, the programmer's email will be listed,
Oh,
and
that's
you
so
can
funny.
just send them a cold email.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of cold emails. I think you can just be like, "Hey, my name is blah blah blah. I'm a filmmaker. I have this film I played at X festivals. I would really love to play at this theater, and here's what I can bring to you. I have a community that's based here that will show up either for a one-off Q&A or for a run. I have ties to an organization that can help us spread the word, and you never know, sometimes they'll bite.
Yeah.
But I think that it's always worth trying.
Before we kind of wrap this first half, I'm curious if a film, let's say look at the budget of like sub 500,000 Canadian or US, pick your luck. Sub 500,000, what do you think is like a healthy budget that would start to make an impact, I guess, in terms of the actual awareness or turnout for a film, whether that's theatrical or streaming only, or I'm not sure, yeah, how that might shade your number. But yeah.
So this is a film that was produced for under 500K, right?
Yeah, 500K and under, yeah. And it's done like, a few festivals, but nothing necessarily marquee per se, but they're trying to raise some budget for marketing. What feels like okay, you're starting to move the dial at this point. Knowing that, of course, the more time where you don't have the money, the more time you put into community building, all of that
Mhm.
stuff can still make a marker. But if you had to put a figure to when the needle starts to move.
I mean, again, it's hard to say because every film is so different and you can leverage what you have, right?
Well, let's use Dinner with Friends as an example. You can
I would
share our
say
yeah.
I would say maybe the tipping point is like K.
Mm,
I
okay.
would say because at that point you can hire a publicist
Mm,
and you can have somebody else doing a lot of outreach for you, and being able to hire out is really
yeah.
helpful, I think.
Yeah.
It both reduces your work, but you know that there's someone who is actively trying to get people to know about your film and to watch the film. And I think things like that really do make a difference. Then again, you can choose to not spend anything on a publicist and go all in on like influencer marketing
Right.
and TikTok and hiring folks to spread the word on social media and things like that. I think it just depends on what kinds of audiences you're trying to reach. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say, but maybe
No,
20K
no, this is
is
good.
like a good
Mhm.
starting off point.
I feel like that's fair. If 20K USD, so around 30K Canadian, starts, and that feels true to what I imagine. You start to get a good publicist where you can, like, it's more than just a press release, but they're actually trying to land certain things and getting some out of home. I'm curious, kind of between, and we can keep using a movie like Dinner with Friends as the case study if it's easier, because everyone who's listening to this will have already watched the film, obviously. And if they haven't watched the film, they're now learning that they can watch it on our Patreon for free and directly support us. Or if they're in the US, they can also catch it on Tubi. So, using
Love
Dinner
to
with
be
Friends, yes, we love Tubi. In the case of with Dinner like Dinner with Friends, I completely forgot my question while I was doing that really great plug for people to
Well,
watch the movie.
why don't we just stop it there and head over to Patreon and continue
Yes.
there?
So we're gonna continue the conversation. We're gonna get into more about indie cinemas. What it will take to kind of keep them thriving, eventized screenings, and what we're calling the lost lane of theatrical screenings. Yeah, we'll continue more over on our Patreon. Thank you very much for joining us for this bit, Malcolm. But don't actually go anywhere. We're gonna keep talking. But thank you
okay.
very much for joining us for this conversation and for sharing your insights. And please check out Lunette Films. I'm going to figure out how to add things to the screen or put it in some description box on social media, and follow along with their new debut that they have coming out at New Directors, New Films.
Mhm.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Okay,
So
part one done.
yeah,
Great.
so my question, I guess, is like with a film like I remember what it is now.
Great.